Hey, what's up, guys? Long Island Audit here, back again with another video. Today, I'm coming to you live from Long Island, New York. I am going to be joined with Chief Scott and Detective Sergeant Banic. We're going to be answering your questions. Also, I'm going to give you some updates on my upcoming court appearances and lawsuits. Without further ado, let's get into it. Sergeant Banic, Chief Scott, I truly appreciate you guys coming over again, stopping by. We're hanging out. We're going to answer some questions. I'm really, really excited. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves again for people who didn't see the last live stream, go ahead.
Sure, we can do that. Thanks, Sean, and thanks everybody that are joining us live tonight, but also who will see this later. So we've got a pretty exciting opportunity tonight for some discussions on some questions and actually answering viewers. So my name's retired Chief Scott, and been in public safety for 35 years. Still part-time with an agency. Doing a lot of training and national speaking in law enforcement, and Sean, helping officers change. You've really helped me set the course of things that we need to work on. And I love the fact I've got a national platform in the police arena in order to try to affect that change. So thanks again for you for allowing Detective Banic and I to be here tonight. But also thank you for motivating us to go out and try to affect change. And again, we're going to see that tonight too, and in the future. So thanks for allowing us. And also thanks for your viewers for keeping open minds, and also the opportunity for us to answer questions they have, and just to have conversation. So this is good stuff.
Sergeant Banic.
Hey, Sean, good to see you. Likewise, Chief, good to see you. So I'm Detective Sergeant Banic, and I've been in law enforcement for 16 years and worked for a few different agencies over that course. Been an investigator for 5 years. I have investigated everything from misdemeanor thefts to homicide. I'm involved in 2 task forces, one dealing with child porn and the other homicides. Do employee background checks and also the internal investigations.
Perfect. So basically, you do everything.
There's more, but it get boring.
You don't want to be here all day, right? Yeah. So anyways, guys, so last time we all came together, we wanted to do this monthly. So last time we came together, we spoke about we reacted and gave our, 2 cents on the video with the legally blind man that was arrested in Florida. So just a quick update on that, just if anybody hasn't seen the update. The sheriff of that department did respond. As sheriff, I take full responsibility for this event and want to extend my sincere apology to Mr. Hodges for the actions of my deputies. I do not feel these deputies' actions were guided by ill intent, but rather by frustration and failure to rely on their training. Nevertheless, this conduct is unacceptable. So, as you know, Chief Scott and Sergeant Banic, the officers were suspended. I believe they cannot have any sort of promotion for the next 2 years. What do you think about, just really quick, I don't want to spend too much time on it, just want to give a quick update and get your guys' thoughts before we move on to the question and answers from the last live?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that people are probably asking questions on, and I know we saw commentary to this as well. So we did, just so the viewers know, we've gone in and read every comment. I think the last we saw were 2,681 comments. We've read every single one of them. And we did that genuinely because we wanted to hear what you had to say. And a couple of the frustrations that were coming through is they thought the officers should be fired. And it's not that easy, to be very candid. So, and we're going to talk about this stuff in future segments, but when you have a union, and there's processes that a city or a county have to follow because there's signed agreements to that effect. So whether we think they should have been fired or just the days off that they got, that's really not our decision. It's up to the employment agreement that those folks have with their respective agency. I guess in one respect, I am glad the sheriff did come out, but I think he probably came out because of public pressure and the fact that this got exposed. And I'll be really candid, I'm glad it got exposed. It needed to be. And this is why I've been an advocate for body-worn cameras on police officers for years. I remember as a young officer in patrol back in 1996, we had just gotten installed the VHS video recorders that were in our trunks of our cruisers with a lapel mic and a camera in the car. And very few of my colleagues liked that thought. But I begged to have a cruiser that had it every shift because there's nothing to hide. And if you have nothing to hide, you know, let the world see what you do. I don't have a problem with it. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Sergeant Banic, and then I'll go.
Yeah, so he acknowledged that once Mr. Hodges asked for the video and they were reviewing the video for release, that's when they decided to do the internal investigation, which I was glad to hear that. And if I'm not mistaken, it sounded like it was done like within a week. So internal investigation should be swift but thorough, as fast as you can get them done. Obviously that, you know, that depends on their caseload and what, you know, mine take a little longer because I wear a lot of hats, but they initiated that process right away without a complaint being filed. So I was glad to hear that, at least. And I think that the discipline should make people feel comfortable that it's enough, that it's not going to occur again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, that segues into, you know, what I think about it. I do, you know, I've had my rights violated all over the country, and there's been many police departments and municipalities that haven't even acknowledged it. For example, Baltimore County just recently, they don't even acknowledge the fact that they violated my rights or what they did to me. But, you know, for him to come out and make a public apology and, you know, at least seem to be sincere about it and did take some action to, you know, punish the officers involved. I don't think it was enough personally. I do agree with a lot of comments that I'm seeing right now about unions are too powerful, and we can make that a whole different segment on another time. Another thing I don't agree with is that he mentioned that he doesn't believe that there was ill intent behind his officers' actions. 100%. If you watch the video, it was 100%. They had ill intent. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He was never going to get arrested until he said, was it that hard to give me your name and your badge number? And then he said, well, now you're under arrest. How about that? Right. So it's definitely not only ill intent, it was vindictive, and, you know, it was meant to punish him. So my whole thing is, you take a man's freedom away from him, man or woman's freedom away from him, you know, that's a pretty big deal. And that's you know, it's not, you know, just making as simple as making a little mistake. You're taking someone's freedom away from them. What is more important to anyone in this world than their freedom? I don't know what, but, you know, we'll follow the story and we'll see if there's any other updates. I do know Mr. Hodges has filed a civil rights lawsuit, so we'll see how that plays out. These things do take time. So I want to move on to the questions that we received. So if you want your questions answered on the next episode, we're going to do like a little brief. This one's more like a big overview of your questions, and, you know, we'll try and incorporate, you know, some questions and answer segments in short segments in the future episodes. So let's move over here. So we had a question on training. So the viewer comment was, if training is the issue, then we need to take a hard look at what's being taught in the academy. So Chief Scott, this is for you. Let's talk about police officer training, right? There were several comments that officers lack common sense and use a lack of training as their excuse for not acting right. But also, who is training these guys, and their behavior is often learned behavior?
Well, you know, there's a couple parts to this, and one of the comments is about common sense, and common sense is really not that common. You know, I think a lot of us growing up, common sense is a result of our culture, and how we were raised by our parents, our grandparents, elders of our church, elders, you know, in our community. So those are things that naturally occur. And for some people, they have limited exposure. I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just saying they may not have common sense. I've seen some really stupid smart people. that are out in the world. They've got all the intelligence in the world, but they couldn't put a screw in the right hole and expect it to hold anything. So, but when it comes to law enforcement training, we are so fragmented across the board with the number of hours and sometimes what the officers are actually getting in the academy. So giving an example, in our state, an officer only needs about 750 hours of training for the academy, and a barber needs 1,500. So a person that's going to cut your hair, which obviously all of you can see, I don't have a lot, although Banic does. That's why I think they called him beautiful. So I'm just the old bald guy. I told you I was going to get that in there tonight.
Yeah, you did.
I'm sure somebody out there likes us old bald guys. But anyways, the fact is a barber needs twice as much training than we do to go out on the street. And I'll give you another issue that I have is in our state, we've got 60 police academies. So imagine 60 different police academies that are in existence, and you could only imagine the variations. Now there's a set curriculum that they have to follow, but that's how many different law enforcement instructors injecting their opinions and ideals and ideas. They're going to have opinions, and they're going to have made sometimes a different approach. I personally like those states where they limit the number of academies in order to have the consistency with the instruction. Now, I can tell you in this state, we have a really robust training program for 750 hours. The people that develop that curriculum, I think personally, do a great job putting together the curriculum, but it's just not enough hours. We need more hours for these officers, but we also need simulation. These officers need to be in simulators. They need to be in scenario-based training and really go above and beyond the minimum number of hours, 750. But for a lot of academies, they just do the bare minimum, where we've got some academies, they go to 1,000 hours. They go above and beyond. So I really think within, I'm just talking our state, we need that to be fixed. But the bad part is there's so much pushback from the academies because for some of them, this is a money mill. They're making really good money. They're making $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 off of a cadet just to go through the academy. And in fact, one of the places that I taught, we saw students cycled through 2 or 3 times because they couldn't pass the tests, but they kept bringing them back in because their fees were being paid or covered, whether it was through a loan, whether it was through the federal government. They just kept pushing them through. And it's like they shouldn't even be here in the first place. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues to dissect here just in that conversation. But the fact is we need more hours for these kids in the academy before they ever hit the street. And part of that, I used to teach the legal section. And I know that the constitutional section is a very small portion. And that really needs to be a very large portion of the training. Because again, you said it at the beginning, our rights are fundamental. Our constitutional rights are fundamental to everything. And for officers to only get this much out of the 750 hours of the Constitution, that has to change. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to keep pushing for that change.
Perfect. I definitely agree. Training is definitely important. I think also equally important is also, being held accountable. I think that's the most, because, you could do, if people aren't going to follow their training or listen or, implement their training, doesn't matter how good of a training they're going to get. And if if there aren't any consequences for not implementing your training, then, we have a bigger problem. And I think that's the majority of the problems that we're having right now, is that no one's held accountable for their actions. So I just wanted to get, yeah, go ahead. Detective Banic. Sorry.
Yeah, to chime in for a second on that.
Yeah, sure.
The one commenter that had talked about that was a learned behavior. I think another area that needs to be looked at is the promotional process, because some agencies promote just the senior officer to sergeant without any scrutiny into that officer. And there's no test, nothing. And oftentimes candidates receive extra points for service time. So, for example, that could allow extra points for someone with 10 years. But what if that person has 1 year experience 10 times? You understand? So maybe a better way to look at it would be looking at the work product from that person over the last 10 years. If they don't have any work product, then maybe they shouldn't be promoted. And I think the other consideration should be discipline. Their discipline file should be looked at and maybe excluded from promotion if they have certain types of discipline in there. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it would help to have a third party interview process, an interview board. I know the International Association of Chiefs of Police provide this service, and there's other companies that do too. And I think this is kind of, at least in part, how you start to stop a top-down issue, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's the major problem. Like I said, I think it really is accountability. I see a lot of comments. I'm trying to read them and listen to Chief Scott and Sergeant Banic at the same time, just because if I see one that really intrigues me. But we're going to be answering your comments. Don't worry. So the next comment, the next question is actually a viewer comment was, shout out to Chief Scott and Detective Banic for having the balls and courage and integrity to link arms with LIA and discuss topics that generally do not get discussed openly by cops. This video makes me hopeful for our future and proud to admit that I will black the blue if it consists of cops like this. We need their attitudes to spread across the nation and purge the bullies. So, I thought that comment was, a really good comment, because it shows that we are affecting some change. Even if it's just this one person who's commenting this, we are affecting that small change together. So I guess the question is, why are we all here, right? I can tell you mine at the end, but Chief Scott, Detective Banic, why are we here? Why are we doing this forum? I know it's extremely popular. We had hundreds of thousands of views on the video last time I checked, 160 something thousand views, over 2,000 comments, as you stated earlier. But what is the purpose of this forum that we're going to continue to do on a monthly basis? You can go first, Chief Scott.
Oh, thanks. Well, I have sitting here in front of me a U.S. Constitution. This document I keep with me in my uniform when I'm on duty. This is why I exist. This is why I do the work I do. And quite frankly, when I started watching your videos and doing research, as I said in the first video that we did, I was appalled at what I was seeing. And I've learned you either have to step up, put up, or shut up. And I love the comment that I'll be really candid. It does take balls and it takes courage to do what we're doing right now, because I can promise you right now, there are naysayers in our own career field right now that hate the fact that we're having the conversation we're having. And quite frankly, I find that unacceptable, that somebody would have that much disdain and not want to get better. Okay, let's be honest. If we make mistakes, fess up to it and let's fix it and let's keep moving on. But at the end of the day, the reason I'm here is because I'm passionate about this topic. I'm passionate about making sure that officers are trained to their highest capability and to make sure that they're out there upholding the first thing they swore to. And I can't tell you the number of conversations I've gotten in since our first video with officers. And I've asked them, what is the first thing in your oath of office that you said you were going to uphold? And they sat there with a blank face. And I said, you promised, you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, the basic foundational rights that were fought for by men and women before we were ever even conceived or thought about being conceived. I hate to say this, but you're pissing on their grave when you don't uphold this document that they fought for us to have. So we need to bring honor and value to the men and women who gave their lives to give this document to us and to get us where we're at today. And I want to do everything I can in my power to make sure that we preserve this Constitution for everybody and make sure everybody's rights are protected. And that includes a person that's breaking the law. They have rights too. So we got to get rid of our egos, and we got to get rid of this butt hurt that some of our colleagues unfortunately have, because we need to talk about this and we need to fix it. And to my dying breath, I'm going to do everything I can to try to fix it.
I appreciate that. Sergeant Banic, why are you here?
Yeah, that's
Why are we doing this?
for the same reason that I originally reached out to you for our other project. Because
Yes,
once
just to remind everybody, I need to remind everyone, because if you haven't seen it, I'll link it in the description of this video. It's like my certificate that we did that training together, Sergeant Banic, and it's right above my computer screen right here next to my YouTube plaque I showed you guys earlier. But I'm extremely proud that I was able to take part and help the Hubbard Police Department, and we worked together, and it was great. It was great meeting your department, and it was definitely a first of its kind for me to see something like an officer, a department reach out to me and reach out to a First Amendment auditor and an activist and say, hey, let's come together, let's implement some training, and let's get this done and help bridge the gap. And even the ride along that I did with your department, it was great. So that's where Sergeant Banic's intentions lie, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know. But go ahead.
Right, and I was compelled to do all that because of what these videos are exposing, and so that reason, and I'm here to lead by example. Of course, I'm not perfect, and you can ask Mrs. Banic on that one that I'm not perfect, but I'm here to do my best and to lead other police officers and to come forward and do better. My long-term goal is, hopefully, out of all this, because agencies all across America are having recruitment problems. There's no one applying for the jobs anymore. It's almost like, in a sense, that's how we're being defunded. And it's not through money, it's through lack of workers. We don't have anyone taking our tests anymore. So hopefully, if we can change the attitudes, then people will respect the profession and more people want to come forward and serve.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree. The reason why, I invited you guys here to do this, and I knew I was going to, with everything that you do in life, there's going to be pushback even in your career. And, law enforcement officers, I'm sure, hate watching this right now. And, that's just the way it is. They hate it so much that they feel the need to watch it, and they're just so angry, and they feel the need to comment. And it's like, if you don't like our conversations, you don't have to watch them. You don't have to, but I invite everybody to watch it, and I invite everybody, maybe we can change your mind, and hopefully you can see me as not some police agitator as I've been, called, or a whole bunch of names. But I understand and I appreciate you guys coming onto my channel and just having this discussion with me and having these conversations, and especially going forward, because it's so important. It's so important. Audits are one thing, follow-up is so important, and holding each individual tyrant I come across accountable, and highlighting the good ones, that's very important. But these conversations that we're having together, it's not just us three having conversations. We were doing that before. We were doing that. We don't need the live stream to do that, but it's, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people having these conversations. And we need to figure out a way to, hopefully maybe we can get some type of training where we can go across the country, all three of us, right? Something. You never know what doors might open up from this. And we need to figure out something that's to do better, right? We need to do better. All of us, law enforcement definitely is not, high on, public opinions very bad. I see a lot of comments here that even have you guys that are not very good towards you guys. So, lost you there for a second, Chief. All right. So the next question I wanted to get into is, so bridging the gap. Detective Banic, there were a lot of comments about how people love the fact that we're starting to bridge the gap. with this forum, but there were also comments that people are often treated like suspects rather than human beings. Can you shed some light on this?
Sure. So in the police academy, we spent a lot of time learning defensive tactics and subject control, command presence. And this is practiced weekly, if not more. And it's, really drilled into you. And what we're doing is preparing for that 1% or whatever percent a time it is that we need to use those skills. But they're drilled. They're drilled into you. And, and this is a good thing, because when you need them, you need to respond, right? But somewhere along the line, this crosses over to where everybody's a suspect, everybody's armed unless different, until you clear them. And I think we need to do better than that. It's important that we are competent in these skills, and that we're confident, because if we're both of those things and we use force, we're able to use a lower form of force instead of going to a higher force when we're incompetent, right? So I was looking at some of the FBI statistics and from the officer down page, and it looks like with full-time and part-time officers, we're in 2020, which was kind of a bad year because of the thing. There was 798,000 officers, and 60,105 officers were assaulted. And out of those 60,000, 18,568 sustained injury. And then there were 60 deaths that resulted from assaults, vehicular assault, and firearms. So, I mean, out of that, and not to minimize, any of that, that's a small percentage of what we encounter, right? If you look at the statistics. So I just think it's important also to understand that when you see a dip in deaths, that it's not necessarily from we're not being assaulted, but it's from life-saving measures improve, and we were able to save a life that otherwise maybe in the past would have been lost. But we do have to change the mentality of police thinking, and that everyone's a suspect or a criminal. We got to do this. We need to start treating people with dignity and respect. That's where de-escalation starts, right? And there's been a lot of effort over the years to humanize the badge. We're people, we have families, we have friends and hobbies. We have the same worldly problems as everyone else, but maybe we should also humanize the citizen, right? We all want the same thing. We all want respect and treated like, with dignity. Yeah. So, we can do all of that without jeopardizing our safety, for sure. Some of the training that Chief Scott and I just attended, it was a webinar online. It touched on community policing, and that community policing, that time should be spent trying to connect with people that don't agree with us, that maybe otherwise don't like us. It's still, we still want to talk to the people that do like us. That's part of it. But we need to start reaching out more to the people who maybe don't agree with us and find out why, and do it genuinely. Your words and your body language have to match. It has to be genuine for this to work. And I think, once we learn about each other, that's the start for de-escalation and the next encounter.
Okay. So I want to move on. You mentioned de-escalation, and I think that's super important. I talk about it in my videos all the time. I'm always mentioning, listen, let's de-escalate. When officers even come in my last video on Baltimore County, you guys all saw it. She puts on her gloves as soon as she walks. She puts on her gloves as soon as she walks in, the officer, right? And I'm like, you don't need those gloves. Let's de-escalate. Like, there's no reason. Oh, I just want to put on my gloves. Yeah. So you came out from the cold outside and then to the inside of this building and just decided to put on your gloves. No, I know why you're putting on those gloves. You're ready to go hands on. And again, just the mere fact of putting on the gloves is escalating it, right? I mean, that's the way I see it. You're escalating the situation by putting on those gloves. So in the last segment, you talked, Chief Scott, this is for you. In the last segment, you talked a lot about the need for proper introduction and how often that can de-escalate situation. Every single time I'm in an audit, I always ask for people's names and officers' names and badge numbers, right? no matter what. That's the first thing I always ask for. People always say, oh, that's confrontational. No, it's not. I need to know who is there. Law enforcement has arrived to interact with me. I need to know who is there interacting with me, because you never know what could happen, right? I've had officers lie to me about their names before, and I found out that their names were completely different. It's happened. So we also know that sometimes officers are amped up coming into a call. They escalate the call by their very own actions. Can you talk about that?
Well, one of the terms that comes to my mind is what we call self-inflicted wounds. And, I've practically watched every video that you have done. And again, I follow some other auditors as well. And not everybody approaches like you do. There's many different styles, but there's a consistency. There's a pattern of practice that we see with these officers. It's usually, who are you? And I need your ID. And it's not even a hello. Hi, I'm Officer such and such with such and such department. I wear a body cam. I mentioned this in the last video. I give them my name. Hey, you are being video and audio recorded, just so you are aware. And the reason I'm talking to you, or the reason I stopped you on this car stop, is X. It drives me nuts when an officer asks the person, do you know why I stopped you? Well, no, but I bet you're going to tell me. It's just things like that just drive you nuts. It's like, just get it out in the open. Those things de-escalate.
Yeah.
But also the approach.
For sure. And really quick, just I hate to interrupt you, but on that train of thought, what you see, a lot of these things a lot of these traffic stops get escalated because people are saying, what did you stop me for? Give me your license, give me your registration, give me your proof of insurance. But what did you stop me for? I want to know, what did you stop? I don't need to tell you that. Give me your license, registration. You see it all the time. All the time. That's how it gets escalated immediately, because now they're not handing over the officer might have stopped that person for a valid reason. But now this person's thinking, like, why did you stop me? You're not going to tell me. I'm not going to give you my ID. And then it escalates. I'm not getting out of the car, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I don't mean to knock on the guy. It's a deputy sheriff. I think it's Pinellas County. It's either Arizona or something out there. It's called Fridays with Frank. And Frank will go up to the car. Nice officer, and he's got a pretty nice demeanor. Although he can be a little sarcastic, but maybe that's for the cameras. But he'll go up and say, I need, officer such and such, and I need your driver's license. And then the person will say, but why did you stop me? Well, I need to see your driver's license so I know who I'm talking to. Then I'll tell you why I stopped you. Well, if you listen to the conversation, you can automatically start to pick up the tension, and you start to see these things escalate up and up and up and up and up. And recently in some of his videos, he's kind of changed his style a little bit. He must have heard me say this somewhere. I'll at least take credit for it. Let them know why you're stopping them. Because for a lot of people, things will just calm down. And I let people know, look, hey, you were 50 and a 25. It's not the crime of the century. But I do have to deal with it. I just need to see your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, and we'll take care of what we got to take care of. I even have people shake my hand after a car stop, because you don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be rude or disrespectful. It's all in your approach. It's all in how you talk to people. Just treat them like human beings. They already know they did wrong. So why make them feel even worse? So just have some human interaction, have some decency, de-escalate. Verbal judo, thank you. I took that class way back in the day, and the skills still are practical today. But again, it's just treating people with that mantra, treat other people like you would want to be treated, or I treat people like I want my mom or my grandma, my dad, my grandpa, anybody in my family, I would want to have treated in a certain way. I'm going to provide that treatment the same way. So, it's all in the attitude. It's all in the approach. Our job should not be to escalate. Our job needs to be to de-escalate. And it drives me nuts, Sean, when I see these videos and they say, what's your name? Right here. Is that WRIGHT or RIGHT?
Yes, sir.
I so bad want to jump into the video and Ask them
And
that.
they say, you know, people tell me all the time, "Oh, you're escalating by saying that." That you already escalated by saying right here. I'm just trying to point out why you're escalating because now you know you're being disrespectful. It's just
Yep.
it's right here. What you the time it tells you to say it's right here, you could have told me your actual name and badge number, or give me a minute. I'll tell you in a second.
Yeah, that's
What do you?
called a
Yeah,
self-inflicted wound. The officer
self-inflicted wounds
brought
for
that on
sure.
themselves. So take a minute, give a proper introduction, tell them why you're there. And in fact, I saw one of your videos where even the dispatcher was well trained and even said, "Sir, that's not a crime. You were at a post office,
Yeah,
and the dispatcher even told the caller it's not a crime." So, you know, obviously they had received some training. The officer never even made contact with you. So obviously but the other thing that gets me too is, oh, you're one of those guys. And how many times have we heard officers make that comment? Oh, you're one of those First Amendment auditors. Well, what does that mean? I I go back to this book right here, the Constitution. If you have a constitutional right to do what you're doing, why are you treating a citizen exercising their rights like trash? Stop it. Knock it off. I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate, but you can tell this really, I'm very sensitive about this. And we need
It grinds our gears.
it does. It really does.
it's horrible. I mean, that's why I love putting out. You know, I love doing what I do, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a second when we go over the negative comments. But I love doing what I do. It's actually very refreshing because I like to be in control of my emotions, and that's why I try not to escalate the situation, even when they're escalating with me. You know, even when they put me in cuffs, I don't resist. You know, I don't curse them out because they put me in cuffs. You know, it is what it is, but you know, it definitely hundreds of thousands of people across the world see these videos and they're very upset about, you know, just the way that you don't even have to like, you know, put your hands on me, just the way you talk. This is the way they talk to me in that video, in the Baltimore County one, for example. Like, you know, putting on your gloves, saying, you know, get out of here or you're going to be arrested. Like, there's no need for any of that. Let's do an investigation. Oh, security wants you to leave, you have to leave. Where was your investigation? Like, why does security want me to leave? Is there a real good is there a reason, a legal reason, or not, or just because security could have wanted me to leave because of my skin color, because of my height, because of my weight, because of, you know, it could have been. That's why security can't tell you to leave a public building no matter what, because it could be discriminatory reason, right? So there was no, oh, they want you to leave, you have to leave, that's it, right? So it bothers me too. It bothers everybody that's in this chat. Like, even now, you know, I am looking at almost every single one of the chats, and I do see, you know, people are still not buying it, right? They're not buying you guys coming on here. They're asking, you know, how many people how many bad cops have you arrested? How many of this and that? You know, it's not that simple just to ask them that question, or if they've ever, like, you know, it's, I get people's animosity, especially people who've been violated by the police, right? And that's what I think makes me perfect for the job that I do, is because I've been violated by police officers more than any of you watching this. I guarantee it, right? Any of you watching in the comments that have these ill feeling towards police officers, you've seen it. You've been with me. You've supported me. I've had my rights violated many, many, many times. And I still bring these two officers on here because I see their heart. I see their intentions, you know, and I still, every time I come into contact with officers that get called, "Hi, sir, how are you? My name is Sean. Can I get your name and badge number, please?" I don't treat, just like, and that's why I think it's unfair. The officers, they always treat me like, oh, he's one of those guys, right? He's one of those guys. He's a First Amendment auditor. You know, are there auditors that do agitate the police and, you know, go out of their way to agitate people and stick their camera 3 inches from somebody's face? Sure. But there's officers that arrested me unlawfully. Not going to treat you like how I would treat them, right? It doesn't make any sense to me, right? It doesn't at all. So, Detective Bannock, did you want to say anything on de-escalation?
No, but when you had mentioned criminal trespass, I'm hoping that we can get into criminal trespass, because I think that's really what laws you're testing is criminal trespass laws. But you're using
Well,
the First Amendment as a conduit to do that, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the only law that they can technically, that's the only feasible law that they have in order to charge you, right? In order to try and remove you from the building, or, you know, because they really can't. I've been charged with it before, disorderly conduct or creating a disturbance, like, you know, but especially for someone like me, it's really it's
That's
almost
the stack
impossible to have. Yeah, it's almost impossible to prove that I was being disorderly because I never am. But being
Right.
criminally trespassed, it's black and white. We could talk about that, sure. I just want to get into some negative comments really quick. So, and then we'll talk about the negative comment towards me, the title of this thumbnail. But Chief, there were some folks that praised you for being open about making, attitude arrests early in your career and admitting your mistakes and owning up to them. But there were a few people who really hit you hard on this. The comment that I'm referring to right now is this so sickens me. The chief will, with a smug smile, back in the day, I made some of those attitude arrests. And not understanding he most definitely ruined someone's life and no amount of remorse will ever redress the wrong. So I think that is a very, very interesting negative comment that was made towards you for what are your thoughts on this? And have you used it to make a better officer? Just what are your thoughts on this person's viewer's comment?
Yeah, absolutely. And just so viewers know, this was a balanced approach. We were going to look at the positive, but we were also going to look at some of the negative comments as well, because we actually do value what people have to say either way. I'm just sorry they felt at that level, but it does take a lot for a person to step up and admit that they're wrong. But that was something that I learned early as a kid, as a child growing up, that if you've made a mistake, you be honest, you fess up, and you fix it. And I can tell you in my early career, I'll stand behind, and I'm sure I'm going to get a negative comment when I make this comment, but I will stand behind every arrest that I made as an officer. Those cases went to court. They were tried either before a judge or a jury. Some of those were pled out in court. Sometimes charges were dismissed, and I don't know. And that's okay. That's the judicial process, and people have that right to due process. And I fully support that. But I can tell you, every young officer, I don't care who they are, is going to make a mistake. And then the question is, what kind of officer are they? Are they the one that's going to step up and admit they made mistakes and then fix it? Or are they just going to continue their pattern behavior and things just get worse and they escalate and just go crazy? And we've seen both ends of the spectrum, both Detective Banic and I, and we've had conversations about this. So, at the end of the day, yes, did I learn lessons as a young officer? Yes, I did. I was a very busy officer, made a lot of arrests that were legitimate. Now, could I have handled some of those? And that's what I meant by having attitude arrests, that there were probably maybe a different approach I could have taken. And I had a sergeant make that comment in one of my evaluations. And I really took that to heart because I really should have been looking for other alternatives. But then at the time, when I look back, the laws were very different and we didn't have the resources like we do today. I wish I had some of the resources that we have now back then, because I could have done some things a lot differently. And it's not an excuse. It's just the reality of the business that we're in. Case law hadn't even been developed on some of this stuff back then. But there were cases that came forth that, had we had some of that knowledge back then, we could have done things differently. So things evolve over time. And it's the hope that officers get really good training, they get good mentorship, they have good leadership, helping them to succeed. And I think by us doing this video, if officers are watching, if one of them changes their approach with a citizen, that's great. They learned something. And, that's the whole intent, is to try to effectuate change. And we can only do that through the conversations that we're having. So I really appreciate the comment, because it allowed us an opportunity to have some discussion about it. I know we talked about it before coming on here. And, you don't know what that officer has gone through. And for a lot of people, they're going to go, I don't care what that officer went through. But again, you have to remember, we're humans too. And you don't know. I thought back to a lot of those calls where we were puked on, pissed on, pooped on, spit on. You would go from a fight call to helping a grandma across the street to, a drunk beating up another person, then going to another domestic violence call. I mean, you're just getting slammed with calls, and it's no excuse, because that's what we're trying to train officers now, is they have to learn how to separate those calls and to treat each call individually. But again, it's hard. Ask any other human to go through all of those emotions in that short period of time and then try to shut it off like a faucet to try to take care of another call. And sometimes that's very difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have to find the formula to try to help officers get through that. So again, I'm not making excuses for them, and I'm sure there's going to be comments on that.
Yeah. I see the, I see the comments already flooding in that, you're cop-splaining, you're making excuses. And again, while I respect everybody's opinion, and, I truthfully do. But I will say, I stand for what's right, and I don't believe at all that, Chief Scott's cop-splaining at all. Cop-splaining, when they're trying, like, here's the deal, when they're trying to explain to you something about our rights, and I invited him here. He is here because I invited him here. I don't need to interrupt him. I don't think he's cop-splaining at all. I am interested. He is here along with Sergeant Banic is because I am interested, and a lot of you are interested in what he has to say. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. For him to even address a comment like that, let's give him some credit for that. So I really appreciate you addressing the comment either way. Like, I understand what you're saying, that, there you attitude arrests, you could have handled them differently, and there are factors. They're not excuses, they're just factors that go into it, just like with anyone else. I have bad days just like you all have bad days, and no one's ever going to be perfect. And that's why I always say that accountability is key, because when you're not perfect, how you are held accountable in that specific situation is so important, so important, because now you realize, okay, just like with my children, or if any of you have children, if you didn't hold them accountable, they would just grow up and do whatever they wanted to do, right? If they weren't punished and had consequences for their actions, they would just do whatever they want. And that's why we have a bunch of rogue tyrant officers out here, because they're allowed to do what they want and there's no consequences whatsoever, or the consequences are very small. But again, that comes down to unions and everything else that we're going to talk about in the future for sure.
Hey, Sean,
yeah, go ahead.
I had some really good supervisors back in the day that actually were supervisors. They recognized some patterns, addressed it. We talked about it. We worked through it together, and it changed the behavior. And I think we still need, for departments that have pattern and practice issues, a lot of that goes back to their supervisors not supervising. So I'm grateful for the supervisors that I did have, because they changed me to become a better officer. And we need supervisors to step up to the plate, work with their officers, train their officers, help their officers when they see patterns starting to take place. And a lot of the things that you've been exposing are culture issues. These are culture issues within an agency that have been going on for years. And they have to change that culture in order to change that behavior.
For sure. All right, I want to move on here to let's see. All right, so negative comment for me, right? This is like the whole thing is people said, "Oh, Sean, you only," because I'm going to get criticism no matter what. I'm going to get the most criticism, right? So they said that I do it for fame. I do this, I audit, and I do this for fame and money. So I'll address the fame part first. Being famous, I don't consider myself famous. If you want to consider me famous, that's okay. That's not my goal. I don't want to be famous. Do I love seeing people out in, when I see people out in, the supermarket or the airport, and you come up to me and wherever I am, I think that's super cool, right? That, I have my waiter at a restaurant. I love your videos. I've never once had a bad experience, because most of the people who spread all this negativity online, they're really just doing it under, keyboard behind their screen. So no one's ever come up to me, thank God, with any sort of drama or anything. But I've had so many people come up to me across the country during my travels that supported my videos, and, they know me and they love me and everything. I guess like you could consider me famous, right? But that's not my goal here. It doesn't make a difference to me whether I'm famous or not famous. I'm really just trying to, uphold, do what I love to do, right? So, and as far as the money part, right, I will address the money. So, you could say that I do this for money, but why do you wake up every morning at 8 a.m. to go to work? Because you do it for money, and hopefully that you love your job. I just happen to love my job, and I get paid to do it, right? It's my job and I love my job. So I definitely hope that everybody here loves their job. And, if you don't, that sucks. But I happen to love my job. And, of course I'm going to get paid. I have a merch store. I do, I'd like to think that I have the cheapest prices on hoodies and everything. Like, I don't do it to, $50 hoodies. Like, everything's reasonably priced. Like, I just don't get where people get, he's only doing it for clicks and views and money. First of all, the fame, and I will say this about the fame. The fame is super important because whether you think, I don't like to consider myself famous. Like, I think, like, when I think of famous, I think like, all the people like Brad Pitt and all these movie stars, right? So that's what I think about. But the fame helps, right? The support from hundreds of thousands of you helps. You guys help me create change, because without all of you, I'm just some guy behind a screen, going around to public buildings recording. You guys, we the people are the power behind what we're doing. When we get those signs taken down at city halls, at DMVs, we file lawsuits, we do all these things to affect real change. We have these officers coming on here. If I wasn't well known, they would have never known. I would have never been invited to do the training with Detective Banic. They would have never known who I was. So it does help affect change for sure. And I do have a family to support, and I do, have my own expenses, traveling expenses, hotels, rental cars. I have a lot of expenses doing what I do. I'm not making any excuses, but there has to become, an aspect of generating revenue to continue to do what I love to do. You guys see, there's a lot of auditors out there that don't post content regularly because, they put out a video, they're happy, and then, a month goes by and they put out another one. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm just saying that I constantly am traveling. You guys, Sergeant Bannick and Chief Scott, you guys know I'm always on the road. I'm always traveling. I'm always doing something. So, I hope you guys don't think that I just do it for clicks, views, fame, and money, because honestly, I don't. I do it really because I love to do what I do. If I lost, half of my viewers tomorrow, I would still do what I do because I just love it. It really makes me happy, and I love exposing tyrants. Like, I love it. I do. I really do. Because in the moment they win, right? In the moment the tyrant, wins. He kicks you out of the building and he wins in the moment, and he talks to you however he wants to talk to you. And me being the person that I am, I don't curse and scream at him and get out my frustration. But I know that once I upload that video, and what better retribution can I get than exposing your behavior to the world? And let the world judge you. You can be judged by public opinion now. So that's what I love the most. And so really quick, I don't want to make this is getting really long, but I mean, I think it's been a great conversation as well. At the end of this video, I will give court updates really quick. Chief, to you, what was one comment that really struck you?
Well, I've got it sitting in front of me. The viewer said, I teared up when the chief said that he's here to protect the Constitution in his opening. It's sad that this statement brought me such joy, but this is how it is in an age of tyrants. And it goes back to what I said. I carry this with me every shift that I work. And I know that we got to build trust with your viewers. The negative comments that are out there are the people that are, they're just here and gone tomorrow. I think you're going to see over time that as we have these conversations, we're going to start to develop trust. And as we see your comments, that's where we start building trust. And just being open and honest with each other. That's how we build relationships. And sometimes we have to agree to disagree. Other times we'll agree to agree. But we got to start somewhere. And I think, Detective Banick and I just being willing to come in here, put it on the line, and make the comments openly that we do, I'm glad we are. And thank you, Sean, for sharing the forum, sharing the opportunity, and sharing us with your viewers so we can have that conversation and build trust over time. So looking forward to the future.
For sure. Me too. Detective Banick, What's a comment that really struck you? Wait.
Well, I think
I can already guess. Wait, I can already guess. Was it the multiple comments of you being so handsome?
His beauty.
There was multiple comments. You got you ladies or whoever know who you are, but there was multiple comments about Detective Banic being so handsome. So I'm sure that's the comment, right? Or do you have another one?
Thank you. Well, it's funny because there was
Detective Banic's wife. She's a very nice lady. So.
Love you, Tina. There was a comment. There was a super chat. There was a super chat that says Sergeant Banic is one handsome son of a gun, and it made me chuckle. And I think that was right about the moment that that female officer was running his ID, and someone saw me chuckle and thought it was some sort of inside joke, and they made a comment about that. Things can spiral out of control, I guess. Yeah. How many love comments did you get, Chief?
I got 0. I'm jealous. They don't like the bald old guy. Sorry.
Gotcha. All right, guys.
There was well, real quick. There was a comment that someone said that they created a YouTube channel solely to watch auditing videos on Cop Watcher. They subscribed over to 700 channels, which I didn't even believe. That's a lot. That's a lot of channels. Yeah. I didn't know there was that many. And they're just sickened by what they're seeing, what's being exposed, and that this forum has given them a little bit of hope. But I think you got to understand too that I don't think that's a good representation of reality, right? So there's thousands of police interactions every day going on throughout the country, and there's men and women out there performing their duties according to law, according to policy, and with respect. But it's just not making its way to the news or to YouTube, right? So unfortunately, the bad ones are showcased. Hopefully, maybe we could showcase some good ones one day. But yeah, that one kind of struck me a little bit.
Gotcha. Well, gentlemen, before we get out of here, I will say I'm going to send you both. Let's see if we can get a good picture of it with my virtual. I'm going to be sending both of you your very own Long Island Audit quill pen.
Yeah.
You can actually pick this up at longislandaudit.store. It says Long Island Audit on it, and I just can't wait to use this when I'm like signing in under Ben Franklin to one of these buildings that require you to sign in. I can't wait to use it. You guys can write your tickets with this or something. I don't know, but I think it would be it's pretty funny. I love it. It's so great. Anyway, I'll send you guys some Banic. I already sent you some We the People merch, so I gotta.
Thank you.
I need a sweatshirt.
I know. I got you. I'm gonna send you one. I got you. I need some ideas. You're very intelligent, so maybe you can give me some ideas on some new merch designs.
Hey, we could have that conversation.
So. Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. I'm gonna just stay on a little bit longer. I'm going to remove you guys, but just to give some people some updates on my court. But we will talk again. There will be Merry Christmas to you both, and Happy New Year. Just real quick, I will be making a poll. So make sure you guys check my community tab. For those of you watching this, for a poll, I'll be making a poll about maybe 4 different future topics that we might talk about, and you guys can vote on which one we're going to speak about. So more power to the people. Merry Christmas, guys. Happy New Year's. Take care. All right, guys. So really quick, I just want to give a couple updates, and I want to thank everyone for the super chats. Something funny, Skazlow. There was a whole bunch of them. Thank you so much. I just didn't. This is being very long. This has been very long, and but I do appreciate it so much. Really, I do. It really helps out, and I love you all. That being said, some court updates. So January 17th, mark that in your calendar. That is my trial in Danbury for my 2 infractions, creating a disturbance and simple trespass. The consequences of each one of those infractions, I should say, are $90 fine each, so a total of $180. But the Danbury State's Attorney's Office and the police department and everyone in Danbury decided they wanted to charge me with 2 infractions, 2 tickets. Can you believe it? 2 tickets. After everything they put me through, you guys have been following along. The 6 misdemeanor charges, it's gotten dropped to 2 tickets. So I will be recording that trial. My friend and journalist David Schuster will be there, and he will be recording it. So stay tuned. I'll be posting that video shortly as soon as that happens. January 17th. Mark your calendar. Baltimore County, people wanted some updates on that. I've been watching the chat. Baltimore County, my lawyer has sent a demand letter to the attorneys for the county. We are waiting to hear back. So as soon as we know something, I will let you know. Baton Rouge is another one I haven't really spoke about. Is I'm still looking for an attorney to help represent me in Baton Rouge. So if you know anyone, if you're from Baton Rouge, you know an attorney in Baton Rouge, reach out to me, send me an email. But anyways, guys, as always, stay safe. God bless. I'll see you in the next video. Long Island Audit. Peace.